As beef prices continue to soar, cattle producers are navigating high input costs, labor shortages, and growing consumer demand, all while striving to maintain profitable and sustainable operations. I'm Alex Makovica reporting on the Rural Radio Network. There's a technology helping to bridge that gap. Andrew Coppin is CEO of Ranchbot Monitoring Solutions.
Ranchbot's a technology company that was sort of born in Australia and now resides in Texas. And we're a remote monitoring and control company that's allowing ranchers to run far more efficient and productive operations at a time when high input cost prices and challenges finding labour are impacting, all businesses, but, in particularly, ranching operations.
Andrew says Ranchbot offers real-time monitoring of key ranch infrastructure, particularly water systems, to give producers a clear view of what's happening without driving miles across remote pastures.
Yeah, so on the sort of 4,000 plus ranches that we're on, what we hear the most is that we save ranchers material, time and money and give them peace of mind. I mean, on any given day, there's over 500,000 ranchers driving around checking things on the ranch, but 95% of the time don't need checking, but they have to go and do it anyway, whether it's in Nebraska, Wyoming or southern Arizona. You've got to drive and check to make sure that your livestock have water. That's the primary input into the business, but it's also one of the least well managed. So we monitor all the water infrastructure and advise ranchers when they've got a problem, when they've got it, which is materially reducing the travel time and the need to drive and check things that really don't need checking a lot of the time, but you drive to check them for the 5% of times that they do. So cutting down labour costs, cutting down transport, cutting down the wear and tear on the motor vehicles, the F-250 doesn't run cheap, and replacing it with real-time remote monitoring that talks from the water storage or the trough to a satellite back to the rancher's phone so that they've got this real-time view of what's happening around their ranching operation.
Andrew says technology like Ranchbot not only boosts on-ranch efficiency, but it also plays a role in maintaining affordable prices at the grocery store. He explains.
Like all supply chains, if it starts with the producer and it's going through, then, potentially to the processor, to the retailer, to the consumer. I mean, if the beginning price of the product is higher, then ultimately the higher price is going to be reflected at the consumer level. So, when we're putting demands on the primary producers of our food, and the reality is that includes, beef and fruit and vegetables and nuts and all of our food supply, we really need to help them to produce those things at the lowest possible rate and at the most efficient level so that we can keep prices maintained at the consumer level. I mean, arguably the macro issue here is that, we've got a growing population with growing appetite for high-end products like beef, and yet we only have the same amount of land, the same amount of water, the same amount of pastures as we have had. So when we looked at the US cattle herd is at its lowest point since, 1951. I mean, back in that time, the population was like 180 million people versus today's 340 million people. So, when you think that the average US consumer is consuming about 60 pounds of beef per annum, that's a lot of beef product you've got to manufacture. So you want the primary producers to be as efficient as they can be, and whilst creating sustainable and resilient businesses that are going to stand the test of time.
He says while Ranchbot started by helping producers monitor water systems, the company now offers tools to manage more with less.
We started off as a remote water monitoring company servicing ranches, and that's now diversified into helping them manage all infrastructure across the ranch, water, pumps, tanks, pipes, security cameras, an array of different things. And again, our whole raison d'etre is around creating efficiency and increased productivity in ranching operations. Often ranchers, they're the people that are up at 4 a.m. and the people who are still working when the sun's going down. They don't always get the best end of the deal. So, often a lot of margins taken up by either processors or retailers before their product hits the consumer. Probably why we've seen an increasing trend towards paddock to plate type operations. But either way, we need both of those things in the supply chain. Our key metric is to try and help ranchers run more efficient operations and use technology to their advantage.
You can learn more about this technology at ranch-bot.com. From the Nebraska Soybean Board Studios, I'm Alex Makovica.